Hi guys, Olive here. Here today to do the next installment in my ongoing series that is all about the 90s PBS Kids TV show, Wishbone. In each of these videos, I take on one episode of the show. I look at the dual storylines, the one that takes place during the present day, and the one that shows the sections from that chosen work of classic literature. I highlight what they chose to include versus what they chose to leave out. I talk about the overall effectiveness of the adaptation, and most importantly, I talk about what moral messages sing through, since this is a kids' TV show after all. This time, I'm focusing on an episode from season 2 of the show entitled Pup Fiction, which centers around Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. So let's get to it. What's the story, Wishbone? What's the story, Wishbone? This episode begins when a close friend of Wishbone's human family, Wanda, starts to receive these mysterious, typed but unsigned messages in the mail that all seem to have double meanings. They say things like, "You are the one." Another one says, "Words can't even describe all you've done." And the last one she receives says, "Wait and see." These could be words of admiration and thanks, but they sound more than vaguely threatening if read in a specific way. And she's getting these not just at her house, but all of these different locations around town that she visits on a regular basis. So like the post office and the library. She's left to wonder, does someone have a crush on her? Or has she royally ticked someone off? That suspense is allowed to hang there as we are transported into Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, when we see our heroine, Catherine Morland, at a party with her nose firmly stuck in one of her beloved mystery novels. Also at this party are the other major players in this story. You, of course, have the troublemaker brother-sister pair, Isabella and John Thorpe, exquisitely casted in all of their odiousness, but you also have the romantic interest Henry Tilney, played by Wishbone, of course, and his sister Eleanor. Something immediately noticeable about this episode is how much time is spent on the novel sections versus the real-life storyline. And I totally agree with their artistic decision to do this, because I think focusing too much attention in on Wanda's creepy note situation would suck all the tension right out of it. Since the lion's share of scenes from this episode are ripped straight from the novel, we do get quite a lot of them, including quite a few instances of John Thorpe directly interfering with Catherine's relationship with the Tilneys. I really did like that they included even a portion of that really frustrating but also critically important scene where John Thorpe is trying to convince Catherine to blow off the Tilneys so that she will come on a carriage ride with he and his sister instead. In the episode, John Thorpe is definitely portrayed as the turd that he really is, but noticeably absent is any kind of explanation for his meddling. And I think that's pretty important because in the book, he wants to marry Catherine, and Isabella wants that for her brother as well. Catherine does not feel the same way about him. She does not want to marry him, but that doesn't stop him from feeling possessive. So he decides he wants to try to prevent her from getting too chummy with the Tilneys, who he considers his competition for her attention. He informs the senior Mr. Tilney that Catherine is about to come in to a lot of money, which of course is untrue. But when the senior Mr. Tilney hears this, he immediately invites her along to their home, Northanger Abbey. Once they arrive, Northanger Abbey is presented as being way more dungeon-like than I had ever pictured, and Catherine decides to get snoopy right away, sensing some mystery in the air surrounding the death of Henry and Eleanor's mother. This element of the episode felt really strange to me. I think the build-up that happens in the novel of Catherine slowly starting to get it in her head that maybe something more happened to Mrs. Tilney is really important for two different reasons. I think it builds tension, and I think it gives an explanation as to why she later on feels compelled to start poking around in their business. This was entirely skipped in the episode, and I understand that they have time constraints, but she starts looking around Northanger Abbey as soon as she arrives, and we have no idea what she's looking for. Even Henry Tilney, played by Wishbone, sees her at one point and thinks, what is she looking for? Because none of us know. I think even just one scene of Catherine in her own head daydreaming about what possibly happened to Mrs. Tilney would make it clear that she thought that Mr. Tilney Sr. was up to some sort of nefarious activity to do with his wife's death. And that would make that revelation that it was all in her head all the more gut-punching. What is done really well in this episode, though, is the fact that the scene where Catherine is revealing her suspicions to Henry is very quickly followed up by Catherine being told that she needs to hightail it out of Northanger Abbey because the master is none too pleased with her. We're led to believe this is because of her daydreams getting carried away, but actually no. It's because Mr. Tilney Sr. found out that she is not as rich as John Thorpe would have him believe. He now believes that she's a fortune hunter, overstating her prospects to snag a rich man. There was a missed opportunity at this point for a line or two of dialogue to draw attention to the fact that Catherine is being asked to leave entirely by herself. There is no one to escort her home, and this was a really big deal at the time, which makes that insult all the stronger. But the way the whole episode is structured makes it crystal clear that misunderstandings and too easily drawn conclusions are at the heart of the message. Things are now resolved on the Austen side of the storyline, and they quickly get resolved in the real life section when Wanda finally finds out who was behind all those weird messages and why they were being sent. I won't spoil it for you here, but it was nothing like she was imagining, and her reaction is priceless. This is the first episode I've seen of this show where I feel like the real life storyline and the novel storyline fit seamlessly together. I feel like sometimes in these episodes, they try to take on too many messages from the novel and try to mirror that in the real life storyline, and it ends up kind of jumbled. In this episode, they picked one message and stuck to it the entire time. And that message is, be careful about letting your imagination get the better of you, because oftentimes the simplest explanation is the right one. Admittedly, this is not my favorite Austen novel, but I do have to say I think this episode really did it justice. Austen wrote this novel to be a satire of the very popular Gothic novel, and this episode truly captures that, and then it goes one step farther and makes the real life storyline a satire of a campfire mystery novel. Less was more in this episode, and the acting was some of the best I've seen yet on this show. It would have been so easy for them to play over the top characters, but I really admired the restraint. I think it made it all the more effective. I did have my nitpicky problems with the lack of detail when it came to the novel adaptation, as I talked about earlier, but overall, I thought this was a really good, really entertaining episode. So that's it for this installment of What's the Story Wishbone. If you have any comments or questions, you can feel free to put those in the comment section below, but if you would like to chat with me somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Funding for Wishbone provided by annual financial support from PBS viewers like you.